Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Coming up on the program, a new agreement between Chicago's two daily newspapers. A photographer leaves behind a fresh look at Chicago. And holiday music with members of the Chicago Symphony Chorus. But first tonight, Amanda Vinicky talks with the founder of a long-standing local tradition. Amanda.
Brandis, this month marks the 60th anniversary of one of Chicago's most popular performance groups, the Jessie White Tumblers. Current Illinois Secretary of State Jessie White founded the Tumblers in 1959, and he's been running the group ever since. It's brought young Chicago gymnasts to places all over the world while providing mentorship and academic support. The Tumblers are just one of White's responsibilities. In recent years, his office has been charged with overseeing the state's Real ID and automatic voter registration rollouts, among other initiatives. Thank you so much to Secretary of State Jessie White for joining us on Chicago Tonight.
And glad to be on board.
Now, you are, as we said, celebrating 60 years of the Jessie White Tumblers. Take us back in time. How did this get started?
Well, I was a gymnast as a kid, and I taught gymnastics in college, taught for the Board of Education, Park District, YMCA. And out of professional baseball with Chicago Cubs, I was asked to put on a gym show. And from the one gym show in December 1959 came the Jessie White Tumbling team. We are 59 years old now, but in a couple of days we'll be 60 years old.
60 years old, so happy birthday there to the Tumblers. A lot of performances over the years at parades, festivals, etc. Do you have a favorite event or performance you can share with us?
All of them are wonderful and beautiful. And we travel all over the world. We travel to Zagreb, Croatia, Belize, Israel, China, Tokyo, Japan, Hong Kong, Honolulu, Hawaii, NBA, NFL, you name it, we've been there. And it's really designed to help these young people to see the world and to let them experience life at its best.
And how many kids did you say have gone through the program?
18,000 kids have gone through the program. We have 300 young people in training, and 245 make up the 8 units that comprise of the Jessie White Tumbling team.
And do they have to try out, or how do you decide?
Well, they have to try out, and they have to go through our training program as well. And we take the best and the brightest, the sharpest knives in the drawer, so to speak.
The sharpest knives in the drawer. Why do people keep on coming back? We've got so much entertainment options. Why did the Tumblers such a hit?
I don't know, because see, in some of the communities, they've never seen gymnasts, and we'll bring something that they have not seen before that will impress them, that will excite them, and want them to become a part of the team or want to establish a program such as mine.
So any requirements other than being good at gymnastics?
Well, you cannot drink, smoke, swear, drop out of school, or dislike anyone because of race, creed, or color. That's the ugliest card in the deck. Cannot play that one and yet remain a part of my program. And then, of course, you have to maintain at least a C average in school. Because a lot of these young people go off to college. We have 51 in college, and we give each one between $3,000 to $8,000 toward their education. You can be a good athlete once you be a good student, a good human being. And we teach our young people to love their fellow man and woman and never ever dislike anyone because of race, creed, or color. And
you are still a coach of these Tumblers, but of course you are also Illinois Secretary of State and have been. You have said, though, that your 6th term will be your last. Then again, you've said that before, that you weren't going to run again. Can you guarantee, is this it? It's lead pipe cinch. I'm not going to run again. I've been in office for about 41 years. I was a state representative for 16 years, the Cook County Recorder of Deeds for 6, and 21 and a half as the Secretary of State. And my mission is to help the individuals who come to my facilities seeking the driver's license, state ID. We want to get them in and out in a timely manner, and we've been working toward that end. Now, there are those who suspect, however, that you won't even finish out this term, that you will leave so that you could have a role in choosing who will next fill that spot. Amanda, I did 35 jumps out of perfect good airplanes. You don't jump out of an airplane and stop halfway. It's all the way. I plan to go all the way. Through 2022. So 3.5 more years. So then, what is your position on term limits? As you said, you've been in Springfield for quite some time. Every election should be a term limit. Now, your office, as seeing the Real ID program, and that would require everybody to have one of these by next October if you're going to fly a plane. Otherwise, to board a plane, you would have to have a passport. Now, are you going to be able to accommodate all of the Illinois residents who are wanting one of these? Well,
all of the Illinois residents don't need one. If you have if you have a passport, then you don't need the state ID, the real ID.
So you think that you'll be able to handle it, given that everybody is not going to be rushing the doors. You also oversee the automatic voter registration rollout, and this is a state law that your office has been behind in implementing. Advocates say they still aren't satisfied and are talking about possible litigation. Why the delay?
No, we're up to speed, and we have some of the finest individuals working in our facilities that you could ever possibly imagine. So we do a wonderful job in getting people in and out in a timely manner. Right now, we're being delayed because of the Real ID. And
how is that connected?
Well, when you come into one of my facilities, you bring your Social Security card, your birth certificate, and 2 pieces of identification. And then we photocopy those documents and then give them back to you, and then within 11 to a 50-day period of time, you will get the document back to you. So that process has delayed us a little bit, but we're moving forward. And as I said before, if you don't want the Real ID, fine, use your passport.
But in terms of automatic voter registration, when is that going to be up to snuff? Again, advocates say that they're still thinking about suing the Secretary of State's office.
We register a lot of people on a regular basis, and plus we also are deeply involved with the organ and tissue donor program, so, and then the Real ID. So we have a lot of things on our plate, but the bottom line is this: people are now able to come into one of my facilities and get out in a timely manner.
Now, last month, it was reported that Illinois makes over $40 million a year by selling driver's license information. Where is that data going, and why is the state selling it?
Well, the information, we can sell it if you want it, and of course, the funds come back to the Secretary of State's office. There are times when people say that we are not doing what we're supposed to do. We're doing all that's required. I run the largest Secretary of State office in the nation, have 4,000 employees, a $396 million budget, 138 offices, 23 agencies, the head librarian with 5,000 libraries.
So what's your greatest accomplishment there?
Well, I'm happy about the fact that when people come to my facility, they'll say, I was only in there for about 10 minutes. I was only in there for 15 minutes. And so I'm getting the service that I richly need and deserve in a timely manner.
And then finally, I just want to say, you said you're not running again for re-election, but you have $500,000 in your campaign account. What are you going to do with all of that money?
Well, there are a lot of not-for-profit organizations out there, such as the Jessie White Tumblers team, the Jessie White Scholars, and of course there are other organizations out there who could use some of those funds.
So a lot
if
of
by chance,
donations, charitable contributions, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, I believe that when you get it, you give it back, and you must do something good for someone every day. That's how I run my life.
Congratulations on 60 years for the Jessie White tumbling team. To Secretary of State Jessie White, thanks so much. And there is more Chicago Tonight just ahead, so please stay with us.
This evening's presentation of Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by North Shore University Health System.
Here's to the end of illness and the beginning of how healthcare should be. At North Shore, we're transforming your healthcare by analyzing your DNA to identify future health risks for you and working to stop illness before it begins. When you're a North Shore patient, your advanced primary care physician makes the latest genetic science part of your everyday care to keep you healthier longer. Advanced primary care. Here's to taking control of your health and taking on what's next.
Chicago could be in trouble if the country slips into recession anytime soon. That's according to the findings of a new study. Paris Schutz has that story and more of what's making news in Chicago tonight. Paris.
Yes, that's right. It's a new report from Moody's, and it says that 23 of the 25 largest cities in the country are fiscally well prepared to weather another recession. Chicago is not one of those cities. In fact, Chicago and Detroit scored the weakest for recession preparedness, according to the study, which measured things like governmental reserves, financial flexibility, and pension risk. The designation means that Chicago would likely see a drop of more than 5% in tax revenue should another recession hit. Chicago scored last when it comes to fixed costs as a percentage of the overall budget, with things like debt service and pension payments accounting for nearly 45% of all spending. Well, the mayor has appointed a new transportation commissioner. She is Gia Biaggi, formerly principal of urbanism and civic impact at Studio Gang. That's the firm of renowned Chicago architect Jeannie Gang. Biaggi, seen here on our set in 2014, has worked in urban design and planning for more than 20 years, worked 10 years for the Chicago Park District. She replaces interim Chicago Department of Transportation Commissioner Thomas Carney, and her appointment is subject to City Council's approval. There's more on this story on our website. The U.S. Department of Justice is moving to revoke the citizenship of a suburban gymnastics coach who faces a litany of sexual abuse charges. Jose Vilches has been accused of abusing young girls over multiple years while he was a coach at the Beverly Gymnastics Center in Chicago and the American Academy of Gymnastics in Wheeling. He's also on trial in Will County, where he faces 18 criminal sexual abuse charges. Vilches is a Mexican immigrant and former Olympian. The DOJ is accusing him of concealing his criminal charges from immigration authorities, and there's more on that story on our website as well. Federal courts are getting a little more family-friendly. Today, Chief Judge for the Northern District of Illinois, Rebecca Pallmeyer, opened the family playroom for the children of those attending naturalization ceremonies. Judge Pallmeyer says the courts converted old storage space to the playroom so children of immigrants can have something to do as they await the ceremonies.
We do want to surround these kids and the families that bring them here with love and welcome, and show them that the United States is a great place to be and that it is a place that welcomes them and wants to see them succeed.
And as for the weather, continued cold and mostly clear tonight with a low around 13, and then mostly cloudy tomorrow and a high near 24. Now, Brandis, back to you.
Paris, thank you. And now to some of today's top business headlines. Here's Crane Chicago business editor Ann Dwyer.
Thanks, Brandis. A federal judge overseeing the Sears bankruptcy has appointed a financial examiner to settle differences between the retailer and ESL Investments. That's the hedge fund controlled by Sears' former CEO, Eddie Lampert. The $5 billion deal was struck back in February. The Sears estate sued Lampert in April for allegedly transferring billions of dollars in company assets when the retailer was insolvent. Lampert countersued for allegedly failing to deliver hundreds of millions of dollars of assets called for by the sales agreement. Bloomberg reports the judge is now forcing both sides to comply with the examiner's efforts to resolve their differences. Meanwhile, a longtime Northside real estate investor is buying a riverside site near the planned Lincoln Yards development, ending a troubled saga for the Bucktown property. A buyer has agreed to pay nearly $5 million for the parcel at the northwest corner of Ashland Avenue and Webster Street, the former home of the Green Dolphin Street Club and Rio Chicago. The property gained notoriety after a spate of violence, including 2 fatal shootings at Green Dolphin in 2015. The club was renamed Rio Chicago, and the city ordered it closed after the shooting of a bouncer there in 2016. With its proximity to Lincoln Yards, the property is considered to have strong potential as a development site. And finally, after months of wrangling, Tribune Publishing and Sun-Times Media have reached an agreement for Tribune to continue printing and distributing the Chicago Sun-Times. That's according to an internal email obtained by Cranes. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. In 2017, the contract cost the Sun-Times around $25 million a year, and sources say the company explored other printing options before eventually re-upping with the Tribune. For Crane Chicago Business and chicagobusiness.com, I'm Ann Dwyer. Back to you, Brandis.
And thank you. We're always happy when a new photo archive turns up in Chicago to give us a fresh look at ourselves. This next story is about a photographer who left behind a huge body of work, most of which he never showed to anyone. Here's Jay Shefsky.
At a Green Line station on the west side of Chicago, riders are greeted by giant photos from a different time. They were taken by photographer Darrell Crichton, who worked in Chicago and Sweden from the 1960s through the 80s and died in 2011. But his work is not well known, and his daughters are on a mission to change that.
My dad was a commercial photographer, like an advertising photographer, but he just had a camera with him wherever he went.
And they're discovering that he took a lot of photos. Samantha Crichton and Vanessa Stokes estimate that their father left behind between 300,000 and 500,000 images. Some of it was the work he did as a commercial photographer, fashion, advertising, corporate work. The River North studio he opened in 1969 is believed to be the first in Chicago owned by a black photographer.
Some prints.
He may have made his living doing commercial work, but his passion, it seems, was for people. From people on the street to top musicians passing through town, Darrell Crichton took a lot of photos purely as art, and he rarely showed them to anyone. Now, his daughters and his widow face the daunting task of digging through so many negatives. But that, they say, comes with the fun of discovery.
Yeah, this is Nancy Wilson here.
And especially the thrill of finding his celebrity photos, like Aretha Franklin, Jimi Hendrix, Dizzy Gillespie, John Coltrane.
When he was alive, we found pictures of Miles Davis. And he was like, I don't even remember taking pictures of Miles Davis. Well, if they're in there, I guess I took them, you know? So, yeah.
Darrell Crichton was born in Jamaica and came to Chicago with his family in 1954 when he was 18. He got interested in fashion photography first, when he worked as a department store window dresser. He lived in Sweden for a few years when he was single, and then again soon after he married Maxine.
I think as an immigrant, and coming from a colonial country, he just wanted to see the world and do things, really.
In Sweden, he shot some of his biggest celebrities.
The one that particularly comes to mind is the Supremes. They were in Stockholm for a few days. He got in with the musicians, and that was how he was able to do a lot of like the backstage type shooting.
It's a godsend when images like this show up that you didn't know even existed before.
Bob Black was a Chicago Sun-Times photographer from 1968 to 2006. He never knew Darrell Crichton, but agreed to look through some of his work.
I think he had a very great eye, and he had a sense of timing, like the teenage girl that had her hand up to the face. I'm sure that hand went up so fast. So he caught the, what Cartier-Bresson called the decisive moment. He caught it.
Darrell Crichton retired from photography in 1983. He was still in his 50s, and some mysteries remain, like why he put it all behind him, and why he so rarely showed anyone his art photography.
He never really talked about it. So when we started going through it with him, when he was still here, there was a lot of contention with him. Because I think that he was reminded of what he didn't accomplish, like what he didn't do with it, you know?
By any measure, this is a huge project. They know there may be monetary value in this archive, but they say that's not primarily what drives them.
All this beauty that he left behind that, is significant, especially for a black man living in Chicago. That's what drives me. And he left this for us to do that.
I like this one, though.
For Chicago Tonight, this is Jay Shefsky.
I could see.
Darrell Crichton's photos in the Green Line stations at Austin and Central are part of an effort by his daughters to bring public art to the West Side. You can find out more about Crichton and see a slideshow of his photography on our website. Up next, holiday tunes from the Chicago Symphony Chorus. Stay with us.
This evening's presentation of Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by ComEd, powering lives.
We have a tremendous source of untapped, efficient energy right here in our school. Let her rip, Jenny.
I kind of love this idea.
The ComEd Energy Efficiency Program has real ideas for making schools energy efficient.
Pedal faster.
holiday music is a tradition at Symphony Center. This year, Merry Merry Chicago features members of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and the Chicago Symphony Chorus. Now we'll hear some music from some members of the chorus in a minute, but first, welcome conductor Emile Decoux. Thank you for joining us on Chicago Tonight.
Thanks for having me.
So this is the 5th year of Merry Merry Chicago, your 3rd as conductor. How do you keep it fresh every year?
It's hard. We start planning this in June or July, and we try to make every concert different. So if you come, in the past couple of years, you can come to this concert and you'll hear all new music, new presentation. It's the first time in some years we've had the Chicago Symphony Chorus, because we had some other choruses, a children's chorus before. So they have the CSO Chorus, members of the Chicago Symphony. Is a real treat. And we had rehearsals already, and they sound absolutely magnificent.
Do you prepare for this, or you said you get started in June or July? Do you just listen to Christmas music all year long?
Well, mostly in the summer. It's just my favorite time to listen to Christmas music because, as you know, around Halloween, you go to the store, you're hearing, all sorts of Christmas music in the store. So for me, it's kind of special. In July, we put the program together and kind of mix things around and, make it really as fun and eclectic and accessible to everybody as we can.
Tell the truth. Are you sick of it by January?
January, I'm already not ready to hear I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas, but right now it's fun. And it's also a great program because it's the type of program you can come to if you come to the symphony a lot, because you hear some old-fashioned pieces that are not played that much anymore. But most importantly, it's a great concert for families to come, because the pieces are all relatively short and they have a lot of appeal to young kids. And so it's a great way to introduce young kids to the beautiful sounds of this great orchestra and chorus.
And for many folks, this might be their first exposure to orchestra and choral music in this kind of setting. How do you make a good impression for those folks to come back?
Well, we make it really welcoming. The ushers are great. The hall is absolutely beautiful. If you've not seen Orchestra Hall in the month of December, it stays this way for all the concerts, not just our concert, but there's several Christmas trees on stage, there's Christmas gifts, Christmas lighting. And so when you walk in immediately, it looks like you're in a Christmas wonderland. It's so beautiful.
And since it's so family friendly, is singing along encouraged?
Oh, absolutely. We have a couple sing-alongs, and we have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which we've not done before. And so I wanted to do that for a couple reasons, because I grew up hearing that in the 60s. But it's the 80th anniversary of the publication of the book that Montgomery Ward, I think, published, and the 55th anniversary of the song and that famous cartoon from the 1960s.
You grew up in LA.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the holiday season in LA and Chicago, besides about 20 or 30 degrees?
When I was a kid, I always thought it was normal in the month of December to have wreaths on palm trees, and it's like 75 degrees, and we get the artificial tree and put it together. And you come here, and to me, this puts me in the Christmas spirit, even the cold weather, because it just feels like Christmas. You want to hear Christmas music, you want to be bundled up, you want to have hot cocoa and hot drinks, and it just, you just immediately feel like it's Christmassy.
And chances of a white Christmas are higher.
They are, yes. We've never had one in Los Angeles, as far as I know.
Do you have a favorite Christmas carol or song of the season?
I do. Well, I love White Christmas, and that's one of the pieces we're doing towards the end of the program. It's by Irving Berlin, who is one of the great American composers, and it's actually it's very emotional, but it's also set in Los Angeles. There's a middle verse that people don't really remember that we'll sing with the chorus. It's from the perspective of people missing places like Chicago in December, but they're in Beverly Hills where it's sunny and warm.
Okay. Emile Decoux, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Merry Merry Chicago has 6 performances at Symphony Center starting Saturday night and continuing through December 23rd. The Chicago Symphony Chorus has more than 100 members. Here are 7 of them: Ashley Hardgrave, Megan Hendrickson, Cassidy Smith, Kathleen Madden, Nicholas Pulikowski, Sean Stanton, and Michael Brown. They are accompanied on piano by Sharon Peterson.
Deck the hall with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Draw the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, fa la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, fa la 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 la. Follow me in merry measure, fa la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasure, fa la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, fa la 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 la. Hail the new ye lads and lasses, fa la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, fa la 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 la. Hear the song of wind and weather, fa la 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 la.
And that's our show for this Tuesday night, abbreviated to bring you special pledge programming. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing, and you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And please join us tomorrow night live at 7. What some Chicagoans want to see in the next police superintendent. And after a year since its launching, we check in with the Parker Solar Probe and its discoveries. And we leave you tonight with more from members of the Chicago Symphony Chorus. You can watch the full performance on our website. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let your heart be light. From now on, your troubles will be out of sight. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Make the Yuletide gay. From now on, our troubles will be miles away. As in olden days, happy golden days of yore.
Closed captioning is made possible in part by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, wishing all a happy and healthy holiday season.